Have you ever wondered what you'd do if you only had 1 month left to live? I'm not asking to scare you, and this isn't some dramatic hypothetical. Seriously, if you knew you had just 30 days left, how would you spend them? Who would you spend time with? Where would you go? What would you finally let go of? And what would you finally say? Because there's nothing left to lose. Maybe you're thinking, it's too soon for questions like this. But let me remind you of something. Do you even remember when the past few years started? It feels like we blinked, and here we are. Maybe we do have months or years ahead of us. But those years will pass just as fast as the ones behind us. No slower, no gentler, no more forgiving. Life hides in the small things, the ones we usually ignore. A smile, a hug, a long conversation with someone who truly gets you. Sitting in silence at sunset, or watching the light dance through your window. But somehow, we keep saving those things for later, for when things calm down, for when we have more time. But that later might never come. When you realize time is short, everything shifts. People matter more, pride matters less, and all the little things you've overlooked become your most priceless moments. This video is just a pause, a space to ask yourself one simple question. If time really is limited, how do you want to spend the days you have left? Not for anyone else, not for show, just for you. And if that question hits home, then let's take this journey together. Sometimes life needs to shake us, not with advice, not with books, not with motivational talk, but with something real, a moment that hits you in the face and says, time is running out, and you're still acting like it's unlimited. For Alfred Nobel, that moment came from a strange mistake. A mistake that changed his life and the world. In 1888, a newspaper published his obituary by accident. He wasn't dead, but the headline read, "The Merchant of Death is dead. The man who made his fortune from killing people has died." That sentence shook him. Nobel had invented dynamite, not to kill, but to help with construction and engineering. Still, it was used in wars. And now, the world saw him as someone who profited from death. When he read what people really thought of him, he was horrified. He asked himself, is this how I'll be remembered? Will my name be tied to violence and destruction? But here's the thing, he was still alive, which meant he still had a chance. A few years later, he wrote a will that stunned everyone. He left most of his fortune to create a prize. Not for war, but for peace. Not for death, but for progress. Not for destruction, but for the betterment of humankind. That's how the Nobel Prize was born. The man once called a merchant of death became a symbol of human achievement. Now, let's bring this home. You and I, we're still alive. No newspaper has made a mistake about us. But what if someone did write about you today? What would they say? What would your story be? From the outside, things might look fine. But you and I both know, deep down, what really matters and what doesn't. This story shows us something powerful. You can die before your heart stops beating, or you can wake up before it's too late. Nobel's wake-up call came from a printing error. Yours might come from a quiet voice inside. A loss, a regret, a silence that's lasted too long. But here's the difference. Nobel was still breathing, and so are you. When you realize time is limited, everything changes. You don't rush, you slow down. You live with more depth, more honesty. You start to care less about more and more about meaning. You realize the things you fought over don't really matter. And the small moments, the ones you used to overlook, become everything. So yes, there's still time, but not for delay, not for waiting. There's time to live wisely, to live in a way that feels full, real, whole. You're not Alfred Nobel, but you have your chance too. And my question is, what are you going to do with it? What kind of life is actually worth living? If you only get one shot at this, what makes it feel meaningful when it's over? Some people say money gives life value. Others say it's love, family, or success. But let's look at someone who searched for meaning, not in comfort, but in darkness. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived Nazi concentration camps. He once said, "Life doesn't owe us meaning. We must give life meaning." In the middle of starvation and suffering, Frankl watched people find purpose in the smallest things. A crust of bread, a kind word, helping someone else survive, even when they themselves were falling apart. It wasn't the conditions that gave life value. It was the sense of purpose they carried. Now let's go back even further to Plato, one of the greatest philosophers in history. He once said, "An unexamined life is not worth living." In other words, if you just move through the motions of life without ever asking why, if you never stop to reflect on your path, your choices, or who you truly are, you're not really living. You're just passing time. For Plato, a life that matters is one lived with awareness, not distracted, not numb, but fully conscious of what you're doing and why it matters. So let's put those two ideas together. Frankl says you must create meaning. Plato says you must seek understanding. The result? A life worth living is one that's both intentional and examined. Now ask yourself this. If your days look exactly like yesterday, if you're waking up with no deeper sense of direction, if you're just doing what others expect, is that really living? Or is it just waiting? A meaningful life isn't always easy. Sometimes it's messy, uncertain, even painful. But at the end, you know you were connected to something real, something bigger than distraction, something that made the struggle worth it. So maybe the real question isn't, how much time do I have left? Maybe it's, what can I do with the time I do have to live in a way that truly matters? And if you don't know the answer yet, that's okay. The fact that you're even asking, that means you're still alive, truly alive. Sometimes a person can save the world, but not themselves. Alan Turing was one of the most brilliant minds of the 20th century. He built the foundations of modern computing. And more importantly, he cracked the Enigma code, the Nazi communication system, during World War II. By doing that, he helped end the war faster and saved millions of lives. But what did society give him in return? What many people didn't know was that Turing was gay. And in his time, that wasn't just frowned upon, it was a crime. In 1952, he was arrested simply for being himself. He was given a choice, go to prison or undergo forced hormone treatment. He chose the treatment. 2 years later, at the age of 41, Alan Turing took his own life. That was it. A man who saved humanity was destroyed by the same humanity he helped. Why? Because the world around him couldn't understand him. It couldn't accept that being human comes in many forms. Let's slow down for a second. Just you and me. No more big names, no more stories. Just one simple question. How do you want to spend this life? Not to prove something to anyone. Not to win. Not even to be remembered. But just for you. So that when the day ends and you're alone with your thoughts, you can smile just a little and say, today, I really lived. The truth is a lot of things are out of our hands. Society, luck, pain, people, circumstances. But one thing always stays with us, the way we choose to see life. When you spend your days chasing what the world told you to want, you start to lose what actually matters. But the moment you pause, just for a second, and actually feel, observe, breathe, something changes. No, you won't always be happy, but you can always be alive. And being alive means feeling things. Laughing, crying, letting the moment be real. If you ask me what happiness is, I'd say it's that quiet moment when you feel at peace with yourself, when you're not pretending, when you're not running, when you finally feel like you belong to your own life. From the outside, life may seem long, but from the inside, it moves fast, really fast. So we've got to learn to find meaning in the now, not someday, not in the past, but in this breath, this conversation, this moment. And meaning is not always some big, dramatic purpose. Sometimes it's just showing up for someone, being kind to yourself, choosing to slow down for a minute and really see what's in front of you. And if you still don't know what your life's meaning is, don't panic. Maybe that's the point. Maybe the meaning of life is to go searching for it, to get a little closer each day, to stay curious, to stay open. So before this video ends, I got one small ask. Save it. Not for me. For you. There'll be a day when you'll need to hear this again. And maybe on that day, these words will remind you that there's still time. Time to live. Time to feel. Time to make this life yours. Truly yours.